I'm doing a biograph
Yes.
by his father and his service in the army.
Is it 3 minutes? And I'll introduce that. That was good getting all those. For a few minutes. Did anybody else in your household get it?
So they've all had it, but like I was the last to go. So I told Andy, like, do you want me to sleep in a different bed? Because I'd feel so bad if he got a second. And he's like, well, if you didn't get it immediately after I got it, like it was weird because like Erica had it, it was weeks, and then Lisa had it, and then it was weeks, and then Andy had it, and then it was weeks, and then I had it.
So those must be moms for the.
We all took our COVID tests. None of us had COVID.
It's like that. Have kids here.
School started and then
Then it just.
Yeah.
Katie, this is it. This is it. This is what I have. It's black and gold. So you either need to take a picture.
I'll snap a picture. Well, Annie's got it.
just all because of the big win this weekend, that's why.
Pretty exciting.
The celebration continues.
So were you at the game?
No, I was at volleyball going, but Jeff was over. We're dividing and conquering every weekend. So next year, then that'll be weird too.
Empty nesting next year.
Yeah. More volleyball.
We're taking Erica up to the University of Minneapolis this weekend, since it's a long weekend. And then the following long weekend, we're taking them out to Ann Arbor to check out that campus in Michigan. And I told them, they're like, Michigan. And
Michigan and Minnesota.
yeah, and Madison's on the list, but like, that doesn't, it's not like a special trip. You know, just do it. And they're like, do you have a preference for where I go? And I'm like, well, yeah, Minneapolis or Madison, so I don't have to drive all that way to see here. Yeah,
Through Chicago.
Being worried that.
like Minneapolis has reciprocity, like it's the same degree. Like why pay twice as much for the same degree?
Michigan is insane.
Yeah.
But if you're in there, that was
Yeah.
It's tough. It's Michigan direct.
7 o'clock. Okay. Good evening. So nice to see so many students in the audience and parents, and welcome everyone. We did start at 6 o'clock, so the meeting has been opened already. We are currently back in open session. And the first thing that I would like to do is have approval of our minutes from our September meeting.
Second.
Anybody want to ask anything or discuss anything on those minutes? If not, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, I need approval of the agenda for tonight. Dr. Brown, any changes?
No changes to the
So moved.
agenda. Thank you.
So moved by Jen.
Second.
Second by Katie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We do have one individual who would like to address the board tonight. This is our public comment time. And during this time, anybody can come and address the board. Tonight we do have somebody, Alexander Lemon. And if you want to just come up, there's a microphone in the front. And you can take any of those chairs somewhat close to the microphone. That we would like to limit your comment to 3 minutes. And I see you have a handout for us. That's wonderful. Thank you. And then you can
I'm
just,
the timekeeper, so I'll just let you know. Okay, thank you.
yeah, we do kind of time them just to keep our meeting kind of moving along. So feel free
Yeah, so
to,
there's a soccer goal. A kid got hurt last week on the middle school playground there in Faya, and my son and another student was injured. This email kind of outlines some of the bullying and harassment that my son's been experiencing through the Waunakee school district since his intermediate time, his time at the intermediate school. I just want you guys to go through and look at this, and somebody can reach back out to me to address the comments that have been raised in here.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you. Moving on to our reports tonight, starting with our student reports. And we have Abigail and Elena.
Yes.
Elena?
Alina, yes.
Alina.
Yes.
E, okay. And if you want to give us your report, and then it will be followed by the boys volleyball team back there.
Okay, just a quick recap on September. We had the club org fair, which was great. We had a lot of new signups, freshmen getting involved, and new clubs were just kicking off.
We also had homecoming last month. It was a lot of fun. We had a really good turnout. Lots of people showed up. We've heard really good things. The freshman dinner is always a lot of fun. It's just like a great way to kind of introduce freshmen to like the whole homecoming environment. And we heard super good things from the whole freshman class about that. And the football team won the game, which is always a plus.
And then we had the new student lunch, a lot of volunteers to sign up, where they just invite all the new students into the lunch and, you know, just introduce them into the school.
And then some of the upcoming stuff we have, all of our Halloween events at the high school are starting, which is always a really good time. One of our first events is Halloween in the Halls, which is an after-school event. Clubs set up tables in the hallways. They have like games or decorations, and they'll usually have handouts. And any of like the youth in Waunakee are welcome to come and walk through and get anything from any of the clubs. And it's just a super great way to reach out to any of the youth.
And then we have
What night is that?
Ooh,
25th.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then we also have trunk or treat, where clubs will just be trick-or-treating out of the trunks of cars, and little kids will go around.
And then we also have Trick or Can, which happens on the night of Halloween. This is run specifically by Student Council. So the week before, we'll go to the communities or like neighborhoods that we signed up for, and we'll hand out flyers so people can like prepare to participate. And then on Halloween, the Student Council kids will go around, and instead of saying trick or treat, we'll say Trick or Can, and we'll ask for donations for the food pantry. And that's a lot of fun. Abby and I will be dressing up as Bruno Mars, so excited
And you
for
do
that.
that on Halloween?
On Halloween, yes.
Okay. Get all these dates down. Participate, okay?
Oh yeah, and then just on Saturday this last weekend, the One Act had our first performance. It was our district performance at DeForest. It went very well. We are moving on to sectionals. We had a pretty good scorecard, and that's just, it's always a lot of fun. We get to watch a bunch of schools perform, and yeah, it's going well.
And then with the phone policy, that isn't new, but has a lot of students have been taking it as new, the new consequences. It seems to be becoming more normal. A lot of, now that study halls and contact times are filled with homework, it's been getting better. And I personally have not heard of many infractions. And then going off of the homework load, I've had students and friends come up to me and mention that because of the phone policy, they believe teachers have been assigning more homework, but this could just be new classes and a new year.
And then this is just an update on one of the clubs that's really starting to get going is FFA. Something that I think is super cool that's starting up with that club is we're getting our like middle schoolers involved a lot, which is super cool because they're starting to get like very excited about not only just being in the club itself, but also competing in it as well, which middle school doesn't get a lot of opportunities like that, so it's just been a super cool experience for them, and I think they really like being able to go to outreach events with us and get involved with that. And we also went to Dairy Expo last week, which was at the Alliant Energy Center, and it was a field trip for all of the agriculture classes, but we also had some students showing their cattle, which was super cool to see.
And then the PSATs are on October 16th. Sophomores and juniors will be taking them Wednesday morning. I know I'm signed up to take them. Excited. And then cross country, we had a student set a new school record, Emily Berger, she's a junior, and the team is doing very well overall.
And then another big student council event that we have coming up is we have our first blood drive of the year, which is always exciting. We usually have a lot of kids from the high school actually sign up to donate blood, which is super cool. And our whole motto, just kind of going along with the Halloween theme, is the blood shortage in America is scary. So we're hoping that that will get much more people involved.
It's a good theme.
Yeah.
And then end of first quarter is coming up, some classes will switch, and then fall break, which I'm personally very excited to have days off of school. And then fall sports are also starting to end. I know the JV girls tennis were Badger Large Conference champs, and then all varsity teams went to conference, and I believe one is moving on to state. And then Waunakee also had its last home football game last week. And then also going off of that, the boys volleyball team is here to give her a little update.
All right.
And what's the date of your blood drive? Do you have a date for that?
Is it in 2 weeks?
I believe it's in 2 weeks.
It will happen during the day as well, because we'll have student volunteers working the tables.
And is it 2 days again?
I think so, yes. They usually are.
Yeah, I think that.
Is it where is it held? In the
They're usually held in the dance room of the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And following that, another student report is, come on up, volleyball team, tell us how the first season is going.
You want me to stand too? Oh, guess dude, can we stand? Is that right?
You may stand, you may sit,
Perfect.
whatever you'd like.
So, good evening, members of the school board. My name is Ethan Frong, and I'm proud to serve as the floor captain of our first ever Waunakee High School boys volleyball team. Today I stand before you with some of my teammates to express our heartfelt gratitude for the establishment of this program. Your support has made an incredible impact on our lives. This program is more than just a sport. It represents an opportunity for personal growth, character building, and resilience. For many of my teammates, this was their first experience playing a high school sport, and it has truly transformed our lives. We've not only learned the fundamentals of volleyball, but we have also forged friendships that feel like family, supporting each other on and off the court. In fact, many of my teammates went to homecoming dance together, and we had an absolute blast. Every day, I look forward to practice, eager to play alongside my teammates and grow together. To give you a glimpse into our journey, I'd like to invite my teammates, Cannon and Henry, to share positives from this season.
My name is Kanan, and I'd just like to say being a part of this team has taught me how to communicate in a way that I haven't had to before with other sports, and it also just showed me that it's okay to rely on people sometimes if I need help.
Hi, my name's Henry. I've met a ton of really nice people through volleyball, and I've forged friendships that'll last a lifetime.
Their comments reflect the invaluable lessons that we are learning, lessons that will shape us, not into only stronger athletes, but also individuals. As our season comes to a close, we want to acknowledge your vision and support in bringing this program to life. We also want to express our heartfelt appreciation for our incredible coaches. Coach Sean advocated for this new boys volleyball program and has continued to support us on and off the court. Coach Willie brings invaluable coaching and volleyball experiences. Their unwavering support and dedication has guided us in every step of the way. Volleyball has seen a remarkable growth in the popularity, and we take immense pride in wearing the Waunakee jersey. The skills we've developed on the court, leadership, collaboration, and importance for supporting one another extend far beyond the game. We ask you to make our team be a WIA varsity sport. Since we've been so competitive this year, we have held our own with many varsity teams, and we've won a ton of JV games. I think we've only lost around 4 games out of the around 20 we've played. We also encourage you guys to build a middle school boys program, much like the middle school girls program, so we can develop younger boy volleyball players in this community. An idea to explore is having the middle school program scrimmage area Catholic schools, since they've had boys volleyballs for years. Rumor also has it that Middleton might be establishing a middle school volleyball program soon. This would ensure the love of the sport continues to grow and that more boys have the chance and experiences that benefits we have gained. In closing, thank you for believing in us, investing in our futures. Your support has not just created a team, it sparked a movement that will empower young men in our community. Together, let's continue to grow this program and the love for volleyball. We look forward for what the future holds. Go Warriors!
Wow.
Thank you guys.
That's wonderful. Hey, can you stay a few minutes? First of all, you should be a public speaker. You did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Thanks.
So just tell me what grade in school you are all.
I'm a senior at Waunakee High School. Senior as well.
Senior?
I'm a sophomore.
Junior?
Freshman.
Senior.
Freshman?
Freshman. And I'm a senior.
Senior. Wonderful. So you have a nice cross-section, but you have underclassmen who are
Yeah.
ready to take on this leadership.
And we also have some more athletes today that couldn't join us. They just had some other stuff going on. So we have a good team, around 14 to 15 guys. I'm hoping to still grow next year. So.
Wonderful. Anybody have any questions, comments for the?
Could I add on?
Sure.
So my name's Andrew Stutz, and I started off with full season playing football, and I sadly got injured playing football during summer, so I was in neck brace for a month during the summer. And I tried to play football, but it just did not feel good with my neck. And volleyball, I played it before, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And without volleyball, I probably would just be sitting on the sidelines helping the team, and probably not being able to do like work and be with like a team fully. And with volleyball now, I actually get to do something for a sport, and I'm hoping to keep on doing it for the rest of my time here. And
Perfect. Thanks for sharing. Boy, I'm just so pleased that you came here and you shared this experience with us. That feedback is really important. Yes.
Thank you guys for all you do. Especially this is not really volleyball related, but this has been, I switched schools and this has been the greatest district I've ever been a part of. I've been to 5 different schools in my life, so I just want to thank you guys for all you do. Honestly.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Awesome. Boy, I just feel like we should adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Well, after that, I mean, really. No, we got a few more things. But thank you. That was quite that was a great part. Okay, next we have a teacher update, and we have Chris Olakowski and Ann Daly here. Come on up, ladies. This is the fun part of our meeting, when we get to listen to all the things that are going on.
To save my voice a little bit, I just wanted to say thank you for hearing. Ann and I are here to represent the Waunakee Teachers Association, just to share some celebrations and just some areas of concern that we wanted to share.
Good.
So we have a few celebrations already this year. Hispanic Heritage Month has been amazing. With all the activities and all the posts online and just all the different things that are educating both students and staff about Hispanic Heritage Month. Teachers are very appreciative of the Zoom conference's remote option this year. We feel very respected as professionals to choose the setting that we feel the most comfortable doing our Zoom conferences, so we thank you for that. We are thankful for the proactive planning in advance of the new middle school acquisition and remodel, at the high school, that building, sending high school teachers to on-site visits, Zoom meetings with architects, etc. The high school is very appreciative of that, and I'm sure the middle school teachers are also appreciative on being involved in the middle school process, as I was at the elementary level last year. We also have gratitude to admin and Dr. Brown for listening and having open conversations with staff regarding issues and how they can be resolved and improved. But with that, when issues do arise with students, staff, making sure that all admin, building, and/or district respect chain of communication, so all involved, impacted parties, admin, building, and district level, teachers, parents, students, etc., are included or have a voice in all the decision making. That is it for us this month.
Sweet. Any questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to any board reports. Anybody around the table who did things this month that they'd like to share?
Last week was a fun week for me. On Tuesday, Dr. Brown and I both attended the Greater Dane County School District Governance Consortium.
You got it.
It's a mouthful. And on Wednesday, I was at the WASB Regional Conference, and actually both meetings focused on the same thing. The state funding for education and what the state we are in. I gave you a handout that kind of gave you a pretty good overview of the background on the issues, and on Wednesday we had similar information shared with us. So, to me, the big thing was we had 15 school districts there, a number that couldn't make it. Mike Barry from Wasbo shared the background information with us, and then the districts got together and they collaborated on possible ways to advocate with a louder voice, both locally and regionally. The group is getting back together in December to cement a regional advocacy voice, and perhaps, again, tips that local districts might consider using within their own districts. In January, I think it's the 16th, will be one of the 3 original meetings, and that's kind of an exciting one to me because all of the educational agencies in the state are sending leadership to this one. WEAC, WASBO, WASDA, WASB, and the rest of the alphabets, to share with us, again, ideas on how we might be a stronger voice regionally to get better state funding. And so they did want to say that if there are board members here who would like to join the meetings, that you are welcome, as well as central office administration. And so that will be on January 16th at Mount Laurel.
15th, March, 15th.
15th, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
January 15th,
Yep.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the summary. Anybody else attend anything during the
Homecoming parade.
homecoming parade?
Had a great time with the cross-country team. The parade went off without a hitch, and you know, I think everybody there had a great time.
Yeah, it was the parade was nice. I took the opportunity last week on Tuesday to spend my morning at Prairie Kindergarten, and I was able to view the new math program and the new literacy program and how kindergartners go to lunch. So that was entertaining, and I just would encourage board members, if you can take a half a day sometime, to contact the building principal. I contacted Dr. Brown, got myself in there, and it's the math program is quite it's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts and little bodies doing stations, pretty independent. I was really impressed at how independent 5-year-olds could be. So anyway, it was fun. So, any other news for the cause? If not, we will move on to our committee reports for the evening, starting with curriculum committee.
All right, for curriculum, we have our Act 20 early literacy remediation and the library plan. So, Tim, I'll let you move forward.
So I'll speak to the library media plan, and very happy to have Sarah Wendorf, one of our department co-chairs, here this evening in case you have questions. But we are required to have a board-adopted library media plan by the Department of Public Instruction. These used to be combined with the overall technology plan, but in recent years, the DPI has moved to kind of separate those into 2 different planning departments. So the plan, which was reviewed and ably presented by our library media specialists and technology integrators at the meeting in, I should say, earlier this month, is really the culmination, what would you say, Sarah, about a year of work on the part of your team?
Year and a half's worth of work.
Year and a half's effort. So it's very well thought out. Hopefully, in reviewing the plan, you have been provided with a good understanding of our current status and where we see the future heading over the next few years. So Sarah and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have, but the presentation was very complete at committee, and the committee voted 3-0 to forward here with a recommendation for approval.
Anybody have any questions? The plan was in there. I had the joy of hearing the presentation, really well done, really solidly thought out as a ongoing working document where, you know, not only what they're doing, but the outcome of it, and it was very good.
Extremely comprehensive.
Yeah.
One of the few plans where you actually see an evaluation process already embedded, so that
Yes.
they're not only looking at the present, they're looking at how to move forward and improve upon the present. And it's more than a one-year plan. It's really looking down the road. So an extremely great job. A lot of work went into it.
Yes, exactly. So, if there are no questions, we would like to approve this so that it is adopted library plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Perfect. And Amy, are you going to do the literacy?
Yes. So, as you are all aware, the literacy legislation called Act 20 that was approved last year has many requirements. One of them is an early literacy remediation plan. So this document includes all of the required components from the legislation, and the committee reviewed that and approved it 3-0. I'd be happy to walk through any of the plan or answer any questions.
Again, very well done. And we will be looking for a motion to approve the literacy plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
I guess,
Oh, just,
you know, when we look at these plans, what are budget implications as we approve these things?
So, in the early literacy plan, the assessment piece is provided by the state. The interventions, the board has already provided funding for interventionists. I can't think of a major budget impact for this. This was really articulating our processes already.
In the library plan as well?
Yeah, so for the library plan, quite a bit of what's encompassed, and Sarah can add in, you know, as she wishes here. The main source of funding for our library programs is the Common School Fund. So Wisconsin is fortunate as a state to have basically a land endowment. So you have the Commissioners of Public Lands. They work over basically a perpetual portfolio, partly of land interest, partly of funds loan income made off of funds. And that supports Wisconsin's libraries, including the school libraries. That's the main form of support for school libraries across Wisconsin, including in Waunakee. Now, coincidentally, we had our chair check-in earlier today, myself, Sarah, and Cassie Roberts, and one of their goals for this year that's embedded within the plan is looking at accessibility. Accessibility for students, really to make sure we're being fully inclusive for all of the students that are in our schools, trying to meet everybody's needs in a higher and better way. From a collection standpoint, that would be funded by the Common School Fund. But let's say we needed modifications to furniture and other fixtures. That's not really an allowable common school fund aspect. So we talked about kind of having a process as the library media specialists work through other teams in our district. If it's a furniture item, let's identify that as a need. We would work with principals, potentially with the business services team, identify funds for that. And for technology, some technology can be purchased under the Common School Fund, but a lot of technology doesn't fall under the Common School Fund, and that would work with Rick Franz and his team. So it's not that there wouldn't be anything outside of the Common School Fund, but we would deal with that with our typical funding sources.
So by approving these, we're just approving the process.
You're not encumbering, I mean, I'll speak specifically, you know, to the library media plan, and Amy can speak further to the early literacy remediation plan. You're not encumbering any responsibility for dollars beyond just adopting the plan. I mean, if something came up, we would work through our processes to do it, but you're not obligated to fund it in a certain way.
Same with the other plan?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do think, again, if you read the details of the plan, what you're talking about, the differentiation, it's not like that's the year one and it's done. You're looking at a long-range plan, and there are objectives, but it's not connected to funds at this point.
Just wanted to clarify.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jack, for asking that. So we have a first and a second on the table for adopting the literacy remediation plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Moving on to facility, yes, thank you, Tim and Amy. Moving on to the facility committee, we do have some capital projects, but Steve, I think I'll hand it over to you. I know that you are still looking at some of the additional information.
So thank you, Joan. So first of all, to begin with, there's one action item for consideration this evening. But in addition to the action items, I just wanted to share that at the committee level, we did review of near final contingency report for Heritage Elementary School. Vogel did share that by the early part of December, they do want to present the facility committee with a reconciliation of the Heritage project. So that will be coming in the relatively near future. They also mentioned that they're going to be completing a reconciliation, a financial reconciliation of the high school and Bethel Circle project. And then we also talked about an update both on the schedule and finances for the middle school. So none of those items are action items tonight, but if you're interested, you can look at the agenda for the facility committee. The action item tonight is consideration of capital projects. You'll see in the notes for the meeting tonight that the facility committee did approve recommending on a 3-0 motion. The notes also indicate that the committee did request additional information on the high school field house project, so I'm just going to ask John to come up for a moment to share that additional information that he learned. One of the projects on the list for this evening for requested approval is replacement of the lighting in the high school field house. The committee had some questions regarding warranty and life expectancy of the lighting that was there previously, as well as what is being proposed. So due to the request for that information at the meeting, John and his team have been working to gather additional information, so I'm just going to ask John to share what he learned with the board this evening. John?
Sure, thanks, Steve. So I incorrectly stated at the facility committee that typically equipment like that is a 1-year warranty. I was mistaken. The lights that were put in 2019 have a 5-year warranty, and the new lights that are being proposed also have a 5-year warranty. And one of the questions that the committee presented was asking what the life cycle or duty cycle were of the lights. So with our calculation of, the life cycle is about 100,000 hours, so if they were on 24/7, that would be 11 years, 11 and a half years. So, you know, I did mention too that the technology was kind of in its infancy when they were put in. And just so you guys know, the fixtures themselves aren't failing, it's the driver, the electronics board within the fixture. So the LED component and the housing and fixture and wiring component, those are fine. It's the driver and the electronics themselves that are failing and have had to be replaced. So that's the information I found out about the old lights, and compared to the new lights, again, the warranties are about the same. However, we're running up against a stock and supply issue to keep the old lights running. We've replaced 42 of the 80 drivers already that are in the field house. So we're concerned that if there's failures during an event or the lack of the ability to obtain more parts, we could be losing lights in the field house, and just not, it won't be on until we get either very expensive parts or we wait for parts. So that's kind of the reason for the background of this proposal here.
Did we replace these lights under warranty, or were they out of warranty?
So the drivers themselves, again, is a part of the light fixture.
Is that a 1 year or is that a 5 year?
I do believe the entire fixture is a 5-year warranty.
Okay.
So as our contractors and in-district electrician folks decide to, when we get lights, when they get the report that the lights are bad, you know, the objective is fix the light. So that process has been just repair it as quickly as possible, get a replacement board, and you know, during that process, maybe it started off slowly, so a warranty wasn't in our minds, it wasn't in the technician minds. I wasn't aware of the high failure rate, but well, now that it's actually creeping up on us, that it has come to light in that regard. So.
So we purchased a new system, lighting technology in 2019 with an 11-year warranty on it, and it's
5 year.
5-year, but it should last for 11 years or whatever, according to,
Yes.
and now it's failing, and we're unable to replace what the lights that we have in there is. I'm just trying to understand.
Yep, that's pretty much
Okay.
on track.
Okay, and it's a $46,000 to replace the.
Yes, so there'll be a couple changes with the proposal as well. The removal of the occupancy sensors for each light. It's unknown. Our contractor has reached out to the manufacturer to understand, first of all, could it be the occupancy sensors? It's a sensor that turns the lights on and off. We don't know the answer to that. And then secondly, we don't understand if there's actually mass failures in other installations around the United States. So we're looking into that as well. So I'm still actually gathering information from the manufacturer on this.
Would it behoove us to let you research this for another month, delay it?
I think because the facility committee met just last week on it, and having our electrical contractor reach out to the manufacturer, which is a slow process, that might be a good idea.
So if we delay this a month, would it give us better information to make a decision?
I would support that idea.
And are they in need of new lighting sooner than later to keep?
We're waiting on 6 boards now to replace 6 more, so it's pertinent.
Johnson, just out of curiosity, what are scene programming lights? That's what it says, to allow for scene programming.
Correct. So that's why I mentioned the occupancy sensors. That was meant to turn parts of the court on and off, or the outer areas of the field house on and off. So in this,
So you could just have the light on the main court,
right?
and
So
not
that
in
would
the
be a
stands?
scene. That would be a scene. So removing the occupancy component removes a lot of complexity, and we can simply have a programmable panel where coaches and staff can operate a panel scene. So for example, press a button for main court lights only, press a button for biad, so those would be your different scenes.
But John, did you just say, or am I understanding that you're waiting for a replacement on the old system And so there are things that have failed right now that you are replacing, and then we're thinking of replacing the whole system.
Yes.
Help me understand.
It's ongoing. We have lights failing right now, so we're continuing to repair
So you're,
the field house.
so what is the ongoing cost of these smaller repairs as we consider replacing this whole system?
Unfortunately, I don't know the cost of each driver, so,
Okay.
but I can get that information for you.
Well, it's just the time to get in there, up there, change the sensor. All of that is more than just the sensor or the
Exactly.
board.
I mean, if the board is $50, guessing, you're right, Jack, it takes a long time to get that lift in there, get it up when nobody's in there, place it, it's a lot of work.
John, what is the lead time in ordering and installing the new system?
I would have to get that from our electrical contractor, but they're ready to go. These lights are they're in stock, they're available. Apparently there's a large stock of additional lights if these happen to.
Who else is, John, do you know who else is using these lights that you can, some type of reference? You
Our
know,
electrical contractors also reached out to the manufacturer to gain that information as well. I don't have.
do we have references on these lights that we put in 2019?
I don't know the answer. That was right before I got here, so I don't know the answer to that.
Because, you know, you hate to say, okay, we're giving up on this system, and then 5 years from now, we're spending another 50 grand because we gave up on that system because of problems. You know, are these boards being improved? Because I would assume that if we're having problems with them, other people are having problems with them. Is this company still in business?
It's this. I think it's the same manufacturer, but again, 5 more years of technology improvement. That's what our electrical contractor is recommending.
But it sounds like we didn't exercise our warranty rights on these things. And does the warranty include labor and parts, or is it just parts?
Typically, it's entire fixture. So I could check into that as well.
And it's not retroactive, so if you replace them, you can't go back and say, you know, that one that we replaced that was under warranty, but we didn't file a claim, or is that what I'm hearing?
Well, correct. I do believe that's correct. Our electrical contractor is checking with the manufacturer to see if there are any credits or what is happening with other installations of the same fixture. It's got to be failing everywhere. So
I would make the motion to hold this, table this till November, where you can.
So, if approved, when would you proceed the install to become, like, at the end of the school year, actually during the school year?
I'm working with the high school staff, Principal Borowski and Nick there. I would probably suggest over winter break, but I'd have to verify how long, if it's even accessible during that time.
So if we table it a month, you still think that that would be a timeline when that would be installed?
Yeah.
All right. I could agree with tabling a month. Jeff?
And that'll give you enough time to hold the information together.
Sure, yeah.
But we have a few other items in there, so did you want to make a motion on tabling that? Pull that.
Second.
But the rest of them?
Right.
And your second? Okay. So we're looking at approval for all of the capital maintenance projects except the high school lighting.
Right.
Mark, question?
Is with the intent of having further discussion? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have to make the motion to bring it back, and we're tabling it until November's meeting?
I
Or
think you made that
facilities
motion.
meeting? Yeah, okay.
And she seconded it. So all in favor of all the other capital projects, tabling this until November, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you, John, and thanks for looking into all of that.
Sure.
Moving on to the Budget Committee.
We had a lot of activity going on, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
All right, thank you, Jack. So there are several agenda items that came forward to the committee that are action items this evening, so we'll take each of them separately. The first one is regarding special education and a position request, but before I mention the position request, in the agenda notes for this evening, we did include information on the DPI program that's called Transfer Service, and what that program means is we have the ability to track students who enroll in our district for the first time, and if those students have an IEP and so they have specific educational needs that they come to us with, we have the ability to evaluate our staffing levels in our organization. If we have the staff available, we would not file a transfer service because we're able to meet that student's needs with our existing staffing. If we do not have staffing in place, the state has a program called Transfer Service. Tiffany Loken, our special ed director, works very closely with Allie. They work together to enter all of this information into the state system. That system then, if approved, does allow the school district to have a permanent increase in the revenue limit. So one of the questions at the budget committee meeting was, is this temporary or is it permanent? So it's important to note that the transfer service program becomes a long-term increase in revenues to support the needs of that student. And so Tiffany attended the budget committee meeting and shared information on paraeducator requests for some students that have moved into our district and have been moved in during the time frame where they're eligible for the DPI transfer service program. Tiffany has joined us at the table, and please feel free to add any comments.
Yeah, I know that in talking about like growth in the district, that as I know the multiple committees have kind of talked about, you know, as a high school, those larger high school groups move off of our roles, that the 4K isn't as big. And I think although that's like the projection for the whole district as a whole, that special ed is, you kind of have to look at it as its own individual demographic. And looking at since 2020, we've actually had just under 20% increase in special education students. And to be clear, that doesn't mean we're identifying a whole bunch of more of our resident students. Those students are moving in to our district. So just as an example, in 21-22, we had 43 new special education students in 1 year, which is a big number. So when we look at that, we think about 43 students, that's about, on average, a case manager has about 10 kids on their caseload. So that's 4 people right there. So, and then each year, obviously it changes. That was our highest year, then we had 24, 30, 18. So that demographic is getting larger, even though our overall growth is about the same. And in also looking at like our staffing levels, really our staffing levels, we went back since 2020 to look at our staffing levels, and really our ratio has stayed about the same. So even though we've had more students, we've added staff, and our ratios have stayed about 11-to-1 since 2020. So really, although it seems like we're adding a lot of staff, it's really the ratio has stayed pretty consistent since 2020 over time. So, and as Steve already mentioned, we have the request is for 2 special education paras for students that came to us with that already written into their IEP that they needed full-time support.
I guess one of the questions that was brought up at the budget committee as well is, you know, we've increased 20%. You know, what are our peer districts increasing as well? You know, to see what's happening.
And so we did chat about at the budget committee level getting some data regarding some of these topics amongst our comparable districts. So we do have data systems that we have the ability to pull that data from other districts and bring it forward to a future budget committee meeting. But one of the things that we learned out of this process is that From the business office perspective, we share big picture enrollment numbers with the board. The third Friday count is on here this month as an example. In the past, we've shared more demographic data so you could see how the student enrollment is changing. And so we want to get back to that so you can see some of that data in addition to the big picture information. So that's something that Allie and I are going to work on. And we do have some notes about bringing some of that information back to the budget committee as well at the next meeting. And we did pull up some of that staffing information, as Tiffany mentioned, from our data system, and it was interesting to see the increase in enrollment for students who have IEPs compared to the overall student population. We were able to verify that the staffing has been very consistent in keeping track with our student-teacher ratios in special education, but what you're definitely seeing is a pretty significant increase in our district since 2020 with the number of students who have IEPs.
Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve this. To me, it's the IEP calls for the extra help. We're not asking for something that we don't need. It's being covered through categorical aids, and it's something that meets the direction of the IEPs. This past week, we heard that at one of the meetings that IEPs are up 17% since 2012. I'm sure we're no different in Waunakee. And so I see it as a win-win for our kids and providing a good program.
And I'd like to add to that too, Mark, if I may, add to that in the conversation as we begin to engage our legislators in conversations regarding the next biennium. We're getting ready to figure out or they're going to figure out what the next budget will look like for K-12 education. I think one of the things to add to that is special education has been underfunded for a long time. While it's being underfunded, we see that we have an increase coming. And so, or special education is increasing over time. And so going to the Dane County Consortium meeting was very beneficial. One, it gave me an opportunity to meet all the other Dane County superintendents and other board members. But in addition to that, there is advocacy on the table right now to look at an increase in special education funding. There is a realization that this cutting into our Fund 10 as it relates to what, servicing our students. And so right now the number on the table is 60%. What that will look like moving forward, we don't know yet, but it's important to keep that in mind as over time, if you're significantly underfunded and special education is increasing, do the math, right? And so that's how it's impacting districts all across the state of Wisconsin anyway. So we're hopeful that that increase will come in our next biennium. So I think it's important to add that information to the table as we realize, and I've talked to some parents who have said to me, I moved to Waunakee for the school system. My student has, an IEP, and I know that their needs will be met here. And so that's a great narrative for us. With that, additional resources are required to meet the needs of our students. So hopefully the state will come through for us with an increase, a significant increase in the special education funding for our students. So that's what we learned from the consortium meeting.
Thank you.
You need a second on that? Oh,
Mark
sorry.
did make a motion.
I'll second that.
Second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Tiffany.
All right, so the next agenda item that is a requested approval this evening is related to the district's Title I grant. So the Title I grant is a federal funded program where we do have a carryover, a dollar amount that would be required to be used in 24-25. Amy Johnson has been working with Brian Gabarski to figure out the FTE percentage for an instructor to be able to utilize those funds. The position would be 1 year only, and you can see on the screen in the agenda notes that Brian calculated around a 0.51 FTE position. The committee did have a couple questions regarding the carryover in the grant itself, which I know Amy's here, would be available to answer any questions, but in particular, This is the federal Title I grant. It's related to the carryover funds. The state does allow a carryover at a certain percentage from one year to the next. And Amy, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Great
you.
job, Amy.
The next agenda item for consideration tonight of approval would be a state health grant and stipend request. So just like last year, there are some state resources available to school districts to provide a stipend for our school nurses and health assistants. You can see in the notes that the dollar amounts that are being requested. This is a situation where Lisa Jondal has requested these funds for the staff in our district. She did explain to the budget committee that the original thought process from the state was that the funds would be utilized in the 23-24 school year, but there are some funds remaining for 24-25, which Lisa is intending to capture, and if approved this evening, she could distribute it to our staff in the health department. I see Lisa's here, so if there's any questions, I know she'd be happy to answer them, but it was recommended for approval from the budget committee on a 3-0 motion.
Make the motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any questions? We always love free money, so thank you, Lisa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you. Steve, one more item there?
One more?
Yeah, so the next agenda item was shared with both the budget committee and the facility committee, and we're moving it forward as an action item under the budget committee. If the board members don't mind, I'm just going to take a couple minutes and share some background on this, because this is a pretty significant decision for the board and certainly has a very significant financial implications. So what this agenda is referring to is the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a federal law signed by President Biden, and there's a component of it called direct pay. And so for the first time for a program of this type, public entities, so it could be a school district, could be a village building, a library, etc., public entities have the ability to apply for a direct payment back from the federal government for very specific energy efficiency projects and with very specific requirements. We have learned that our Heritage Elementary School and Waunakee Middle School have eligible projects for the direct pay program. The regulations and the requirements from the federal government have been issued over the last year to year and a half. In the particular question that we're posing to the board tonight is related to the middle school. I am going to talk for a minute just briefly about Heritage as well, but the focus for tonight is the middle school. And there's two very different paths that can be considered for this program. So there is an option for our district to participate in the program at a 6% reimbursement level. The 6% reimbursement level coincides with not meeting requirements such as what's called prevailing wage, apprenticeship, and domestic content. So we would be eligible to apply for this program for reimbursement in the range of 6% without any additional investment on behalf of the board. There also are opportunities to meet the federal requirements for what's called prevailing wage, apprenticeship, and domestic content to have a potential to increase that reimbursement up to 30%. So I'm going to mention what those are. So prevailing wage is a higher wage for the individuals working on, as an example, the geothermal system that is being used for the design of this new middle school. The wages for prevailing wage are determined for us. We do file for those, we receive those, and then we can compare those wages to the wages that the contractors working on the project put in their bids. The second thing is apprenticeship requirements. So there's a significant requirement to involve apprenticeship programs on these projects. And the third part is domestic content, meaning where are the materials for the project coming from. If we meet the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements but do not meet the domestic content requirements, that's a 27% reimbursement level. And just for an example, you can see on the screen the reimbursement for a $14 million geothermal system would range from $840,000 at the 6% level up to $4.2 million at the 30% level. However, there's a cost associated with this. The cost to meet the 27% threshold is $1.1 million, while the contingency for the middle school is $4.3 million. So to talk a little bit further about the finances, I want to talk about where the projects are at and what options would be available to the board. The facility committee has reviewed the initial completion of the contingency for Heritage. It's important to note, when the community approved the referendum projects, the community approved $175 million across specified projects: Heritage Middle School, targeted work at the high school of Bethel Circle, and then district-wide maintenance. The board has the flexibility to utilize those funds across those projects. So as an example, the board could make the decision, as funds are freed up at Heritage, to invest in this effort at the middle school. The board also could make the decision to reallocate the owner's contingency at the middle school towards this effort. As you are aware, there were a number of value engineering opportunities at the middle school that the board approved that have created a contingency for the owner that exceeds $1.1 million. A couple of other points that I would want to make about this. It's important to note for the community, as we are going forward with a referendum proposal for the community in November, I just want to make sure that we're differentiating this topic from the referendum topic in November. This topic and the funds that we have freed up at Heritage and potentially would be able to utilize at the middle school are what's called Fund 49, or in Wisconsin terms, capital projects. The referendum in November is for operational expenses, which is in Fund 10. So a question that a community member could have is, would we be able to use funds that are remaining at Heritage, as an example, towards the referendum efforts that the board has put out for a request for a vote in November? And the answer to that is no. They're completely different topics, completely different accounting funds in Wisconsin. So it's just important to clarify for the community that these are really two different financial topics. I want to touch for a minute on Heritage. So Heritage also has a geothermal system, solar projects, EV chargers, etc., and at a minimum is eligible for the 6%. But there is a significant difference at Heritage, and that difference is that the regulations for this program came out well after the majority of the work was done. Meaning we did not ever have that opportunity to have this discussion with the board at the time that the contractors were working on the geothermal system for that school. So we do intend to at least apply for the 6% level for Heritage, but based on the thought process tonight from the board, we intend to come back to a future facility committee meeting and discuss heritage. There will be penalties involved at Heritage if we decide to go for a larger dollar amount, because the individuals that worked on that project were not paid prevailing wage. The apprenticeship requirements were not met because we weren't aware of them. They were not published, they did not exist at the time. But note that at Heritage, the 6% option is absolutely available. Any option above that would be complicated, and we do want to present that information to the facility committee very shortly after we evaluate the middle school. Timing's important for the middle school because the team that's coming in to do the drilling for the geothermal wells is coming next month. And that is one of the groups of individuals that absolutely would have to be paid the prevailing wage if we want to seek the reimbursement at the 27%. If we don't have that decision made prior to those staff being on board, we then again become subject to the penalties that exist in the program. So I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to kind of provide that high-level overview. Fundamentally, this comes down to whether or not the board is more comfortable with going after the 6% reimbursement, which does not require an additional investment for prevailing wage or apprenticeship requirements, or if the board is comfortable with an additional investment to seek that higher level of reimbursement. Board member Hetzel did send an email to us today requesting some information regarding the thought process of moving forward and what might this legislation look like. We did share some publicly available information about the complications that would exist in Congress with trying to change this legislation. While no one can predict the future, it is certainly important to note that what we have on this screen in front of you tonight is based on the information that exists today, and changes to that legislation would be difficult to accomplish, but it is possible depending on how the election goes this November. So that sets the stage for it. At this point, I'd be open to any facility committee members, budget committee members, sharing your thoughts from either the committee discussions, or of course all board members are welcome to ask questions or give feedback. So if any, Joan, if you want to take it from here for any board member thoughts or discussion.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess where are our thoughts around this?
I guess to Steve's point, once the Congress has passed this, it's difficult to change it. It's not one body that can say, hey, we're not going to do this. It's government as a whole. So I guess because the program is in place, at this point, I guess I would feel comfortable with pursuing the 27% threshold for this particular project. And I'm assuming that we can get the content that's required in this project.
So what Jack is referencing is the 27% is the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. The 30% is domestic content. And as board members know, we've approved a lot of local subcontractors in the project. As an example, the steel for the project is coming from Endra Steel right here in Waunakee. Concrete is coming from Waunakee-based businesses as well, Advanced. So we have a lot of vendors that are providing content. What matters for the domestic content, the 27% to 30%, is the geothermal system and the related materials for that system. We have been in communication with North American Mechanical. We think it'll be close on that one. That one is a to be determined between 27 and 30%, but we are pursuing that as well. The added investment is what would guarantee our eligibility for the 27%. We are also working on, if the board goes in that direction, pursuing the domestic content, but that one is going to definitely be a challenge to get there, but we think we might have a path to make it.
Mark.
Yeah, I agree with Jack. To me, if we go for the 27%, you're almost tripling your investment. When we hear about, is there a possibility of changing things? Again, from the legal information we have, that seems highly unlikely, and at the very least, we're certain that we won't lose any money on it. And so it's not like you're gambling, you're really investing, and to me, I would much rather see us close to triple our investment than go with the 6%, because it just helps the district.
For me, seeing that the apprenticeship is a part of it is a huge thing too, because that just meshes just with all of our initiatives in terms of having students involved in furthering education in different labor markets. So, yeah.
But these apprentice programs, though, aren't necessarily for student.
Not high school, but they're sorry.
They're
union apprentices.
Just to be
Yeah.
clear.
How much do you feel those $60,000 would increase over this process to completion, do you believe? Any idea?
Right, good question. So what Ted's referencing, you can see the notes at the bottom. We did have that discussion about providing the board members with some additional background on the legal fees and the accounting fees. So the way that this would work from this point forward is the attorneys have drafted the agreements for us. So we've already shared them with Vogel, and Vogel has shared them with the subcontractors. So Ally and I believe, have done the majority of the heavy lifting on the legal end. On the accounting end, Wifley actually will file all of the paperwork for us. So the expenses on the accounting end are light right now, because we haven't had them do a lot of the actual filing and going for the actual funding. On the legal end, I would say our investment has been more significant because of drawing up all of the paperwork, helping Ally and I learn all the requirements. So I feel like we're getting there on the legal end. On the accounting end, a lot of that would really start kicking in depending on whether we're going for the 6% or the 27%. So that part is light right now. I would say the legal end is on the heavier side of where we're going to end up being.
And you feel pretty confident that there's no additional strings attached than what have been mentioned to this point?
So the regulations have been fully issued. The requirements have been laid out. I would say all of that is clear at this point regarding the domestic or the prevailing wage. We have the numbers, our contractors have the numbers, the apprenticeship requirements are clear. Whether or not we can meet the domestic content is something we're still working on. That will be close for us to make, but as far as the numbers, they've all been vetted by Wifley, Vogel, the subcontractors. Vogel has some additional work that they want to do with the 1.1 million to vet that with the staff who are going to be on the teams doing the actual geothermal work. That was a high-level estimate. They'd like to see that be a little bit lower, so they want to do a little bit more work on that. But in general, these numbers have been vetted, and we believe very strongly they're very, very close.
And there'll be no conditions on the money that we get back. It's a payment back to it. It's yours to do with what you'd like.
So no conditions on the funds coming back. The only question will be whether or not the DPI issues requirements about which accounting fund the actual deposit of the money back needs to go to. So as an example, if the DPI were to determine that all of the payments back, because we'll be one of the first ones getting payments back out of this program for Heritage, because by next summer, we will be eligible to file for this program for the solar at Heritage, the solar at the intermediate school, and then ultimately whatever decision we make at Heritage. So we'll be one of the first public entities applying for these funds. If the DPI makes a decision that these funds can be deposited in Fund 10, the board would have sole discretion as far as how to utilize them. If they would have to be deposited into Fund 49, the referendum fund, they would be restricted to capital projects. So it just depends on whether or not, Allie and I have talked with our accountant about it. As of right now, that would be a decision that the board could make. However, this program is relatively new, and it is possible due to the dollar amounts and the size of the reimbursements, the DPI may issue requirements as far as which accounting fund has to be utilized for the refunds coming in, and the payments would be coming from the IRS. So it is possible that the DPI would issue further guidance.
Katie, any questions, comments?
I mean,
Steve, I just
I'm
wanna-
still more of the conservative on it, like I'd go for the 6%, it feels like there's too many open things that still are at jeopardy of that. I know it's a nice carrot to dangle and it looks pretty good, but I guess I'd be in support of the 6.
I just appreciate, Steve, all that you and Ally have done to educate yourself, learn about the program, take the time to, you know, invite us into that window so that we understand it. It seems like a wonderful program to be involved in, and I do think that, you know, as Mark said, it's tripling our money, and there aren't many places you can triple your money in that time period, so I would certainly support it.
I guess from my standpoint, if we get this money back, we've got a lot of capital maintenance projects in this particular district. I hope that the board, you know, because it's coming out of referendum dollars and referendum projects, that we put that money towards, you know, maintenance in the facility, because the last thing you want to do is continually defer maintenance.
And just one final comment I'll make is this was on the agenda for the facility committee as well, and Ted asked a question regarding the fact that the projects have gone very well financially and the funds that we have available and what could be done with them. So what Allie and I did after the facility committees, we appreciate Ted prompting us with that discussion. We asked our financial advisor to be prepared when they come to the budget committee meeting in November to talk about some potential options to give back to the community regarding the success that we've had at Heritage, and again, possibly the success that we might have from this program, as well as where we're at the middle school. So we appreciate you bringing that up, Ted, and we are going to bring information to the board so you could look at that as far as options, because there are options available to us. All of the funds that will be given back to the district for the Heritage Project would be available for the board to determine how to allocate. One of the options, as Ted brought up, would be considering some type of community, you know, whatever, however you want to call it, give back or reduction of the tax levy, or allocated towards Fund 39 to debt, or possibly not borrowing the full amount of the 175. So we appreciate Ted bringing that up, and we've asked our financial advisor to come prepared to talk about that next month. So thank you for bringing that up. I just wanted you to all to know that we are intending to also bring that forward for discussion starting next month.
Thank you. So anybody have any other comments that they want to make or questions? If not, if anybody would like to make a motion on this topic.
I move that we approve the project for the 27%. And if it falls into our parameters to be able to do so, 30%, but that's to be determined.
Second.
Any comments on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Thank you, Steve, for all your work. Did we have one other item on that committee?
No, we're good.
I think we're done. So we're moving on to policy.
All right, good old policy. We have a few policies for consideration for approval, and I think, is Amy still here? Do you want to speak to it? Or if there's any questions on any of them, we've looked at them already. There's some that we're looking to repeal. They're not, there's one in there that's a telephone policy, or telephones, we don't have telephones in schools anymore, and things like that. So it's just a bit outdated. I don't know if any of them really stand out, if you want to have some discussion about it.
Ted, if you wouldn't mind, could I call
The transportation.
Yeah, could I call the board's attention to the transportation
Definitely.
policy and ask Rebecca to bring that one up so you can all see it? What I would like to share with the board is just a little bit of additional information on this one, because there is a change that I want to make sure everyone would be aware of. So in the process of going through the review with the School Board Association, as an example, you've seen before, they make recommendations on which policies to start fresh with their policy resource guide, which ones to continue with our policies, sometimes which ones to remove. They recommended our transportation policy start fresh with one of their policies, the policy resource guide, with the understanding that we would take the key components of our policy, like the board transportation limits, and integrate it into the WASB policy. So Allie and I asked for an additional month to be able to make sure that all of the components of the board policy transferred over to the policy that was recommended by the WASB, with one exception. And so I'm going to call your attention to the second paragraph that's highlighted. In parentheses, it says new language based on discussion from September board meeting. So in September, as board members, you know, you receive public feedback from community members about the transportation policy and the lack of flexibility for any particular situations that maybe were occurring within a family within the limits. An example that you were presented with in September was a family for our new school that was within the 1 mile limit for transportation. So Allie and I wrote an additional paragraph, and we did get some feedback from the policy committee to add a change in here, so I just want to cover that. So the paragraph that has the new language mentions that the district administrator may approve transportation of students within the mileage limits above. The approval shall only be granted for extenuating circumstances, and we identify what that would be. Dr. Brown's feedback was that documentation must be provided to the district administrator, so that's been included. What we're recommending is that students would be required to walk to the nearest existing bus stop location. The feedback from the policy committee, we added the statements, these requests will need to be approved at least annually. So the intent behind that entire paragraph would be to provide the possibility of a family requesting transportation based on documented extenuating circumstances that would have to be approved by Dr. Brown. So I know as board members, you all did receive that parent feedback back in September. There was a request for us to take a look at this. The policy committee did take a look at it, recommended the change that you see in front of you. I just wanted to point this one out to all of you because it's different than just a standard, update the language one. This actually includes a new paragraph that would be different than what was there in our previous policy. So I'd be open to answer any questions you might have or feedback you have on this one, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of this.
Steve, were you recommending that this be tabled for a month so that you can put all of your, you can review our existing policy and then this policy?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. So we did ask for that a month ago at the policy committee level so that we would have the additional time to make sure we weren't missing anything, given the importance of the transportation policy. The committee agreed to give us an extra month, so we did work on it. That coincided with the request you received as board members, so we basically added that in during that evaluation in the last month, and that's what you see tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I really appreciate the flexibility that you worked into that policy with some of those cases that we've been met with on a yearly basis, so thank you.
Do you have a projected, sorry, Mark, do you have a projected date when we would have a cost to just understand if both the distances were shortened, were identical at 1 mile?
Yes, so Allie and I have met with Lamers. We did share that request with them. We did want a chance to explore that a little bit more with the budget committee, especially given the change that was approved last spring for middle school students once the new middle school opens up. So our intention is, yes, to bring that back, to bring it back to a budget committee meeting. That's part of the reason why we're looking for a little bit of a longer meeting at the next one, hopefully 90 minutes, which I think will be around later on this evening. So yes, we have started that discussion and are intending to bring that back to the budget committee.
Steve, and Ted, or the committee, I really appreciate what you did. It reads well. My one concern, and I apologize for bringing it up tonight versus sending it to the committee, is should we have a specified metric for determining the 1.7 or the 1 mile? Some people say, oh, well, I'm using my GPS, I'm using X, I'm using Y. Is there a specific thing that we use, and should maybe that be included to make sure that this is what we're using?
Sure, so thank you for bringing that up. What Mark is referencing, I'm going to take you to the paragraph above the one we just looked at, where it mentions the board has determined the district shall provide transportation. So let's say the K through 4 reside more than 1 mile from their assigned school. The 1 mile is measured from the intersection of the bus loop of, is the letter V missing?
You need a T.
Of the T, sorry. The nearest public road. So basically, like at Heritage, we talked about the bus loop in the intersection with Woodland. We do measure that by publicly available data. A good example of that would be Google Maps along the actual roads, the public roads that would be the closest to that location. We use publicly available data so the families could see the same thing that we're seeing. Lamers also has a system that utilizes well that we can compare it to. It would be very easy to put into the policy how that is measured, but right now I utilize the Google mapping tool and I draw it out to compare the location of the home to the location that's included in the policy. That certainly could be added in here as an option, but that's what we do administratively is we will use like a Google mapping tool to actually map it out to see the distance. When it's close, Allie or I do then reach out to Lamers for their system to confirm are they seeing the same thing we are, especially if it's within like 1/10 of a mile. We will also check with them, but that's how we do it.
Would you like that added, Mark?
Only if you think it would be helpful.
I'm thinking
I
these.
mean, I don't have to make the decisions when people call.
I think these systems will change over time.
Would putting that in hinder or help?
And that's a good point. Is that a system that will stand over time, or will there be a better system?
Right. And this is a policy that you want in, and if you say you're gonna use this system,
You
you
might
get a
wanna
different
keep it.
truck or bus transportation company that uses
I mean,
system-wide.
at best, you could say kind of the process you're doing, you're evaluating it, and then you go back for a further confirmation, so it's sort of, it's worked out, it's not one number, it's done,
To
so.
clarify that it's not a radius, that it's shortest
Right.
I can't say the word, navigatable.
Yes, that's exactly what we do. Yes, what you're saying, yep.
So maybe it doesn't need to be spelled out if you have questions. Okay, so, anything else, Ted, that we should have our attention drawn to on these?
No, I appreciate Steve bringing that one up. It was well said.
So if not, we could take all of the policies as one motion? if
Motion to
anybody's-
approve the policies as presented.
Second.
Anybody have any questions on that motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Thank you, and thank you for all the work on the policies. We must be getting close to the end.
We must be.
We are.
And then you get all the new revisions.
Then we have to go back and do all speed. I think that concludes our committees. Moving on to administrative report, we just have one item, our student count. Does anybody, Steve, are you going to talk, or Ally?
I'll just share that Ally did send out a communication to the board with information on the student count. It is available to the community. We have years' worth of data on the business services website. We did include it into the board book as well. Just one interesting thing to note is the budget drafts all along have been based on 4412. The final count of students and seats was 4411. And so it is becoming, I would say, a predictable pattern for us where we're seeing larger enrollments graduate from 12th grade, smaller incoming kindergarten students, and then growth in between. And the growth in between is what's keeping our overall enrollment very stable, if not slightly increasing over time. And so it's definitely becoming more of a pattern on a year-to-year basis. The developments that you see occurring in our community, as well as housing turnover, are really bringing us that growth of student counts really between the smaller kindergarten class and the larger 12th grade class that's graduating. And it's definitely something that other Dane County districts are seeing as well. As you know, more than a majority of districts in Wisconsin are in declining enrollment. We're in slightly increasing enrollment from where we've been in the recent past, but in general, our growth is occurring in between the kindergarten and 12th grade level. So we'd be happy to answer any questions for you, but otherwise, I know Allie's already sent out information to you on this.
Thank you. Anybody, any questions? All right, moving on to any announcements or correspondence, Dr. Brown?
There aren't any announcements other than parent-teacher conferences this week. Don't forget.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda. As you consider that, all at one or pulling anything out. I would like to acknowledge 2 gifts this month. One is our Pride Pump by the Mefford Oil Company, and it's a much larger amount than we had recently. It's $2,709. And again, I appreciate them allowing that to go into our student assistant fund and to use that for our kids that may need extra assistance. Secondly, Chris Jordan has very generously donated 3 AED units, 2 to be housed outside. And so in addition to the units, he is providing 2 heated cabinets and 1 to be put in our weight room. And that total donation is $8,085. So I appreciate all of that from Chris Jordan. So those are the things I wanted to mention. Again, there are many things in here. If anybody wants to pull anything out for further consideration or ask questions before we take the consent agenda approval.
I make the motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions before that? If not, all in favor of approving the whole consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you. So in between our meetings, we were able to select a lot of dates for our meetings. There are 2 all-board meetings, and we need a motion for those. One is for October 28th at 5 p.m. to set the tax levy. So I need a motion to
So
put
moved.
that calendar on, or that date on
Second.
the calendar. So Ted and Jack, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The second one that we need approval in that manner is for our curriculum presentations, and we have 2 of those, February 28th and February 24th and April 28th, both at 5:30. And again, I need a motion and approval of that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then our committee, just to announce them, our committee meetings, budget is at November 6th at 7:30. Facility, November 5th at 7:30. Policy, November 4th at 7:30. And DEI, November 20th at 5:30. And curriculum, October 28th at 3 o'clock. You got them all? Yeah. You got them all, Rebecca? Perfect. And I think that's all we need for tonight. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.